Hello everyone, welcome back to some League of Legends DFS esports breakdown for February the 1st slate. Um, Getting into the thick of things here, the Chinese New, or I guess Lunar New Year break is over. We had the LCK continuing throughout, and we are pretty much back. We should be 5 days a week, I think. Back with the full slate of things. It should be pretty fun. I'm pretty excited for the swing of it. Past couple nights in these LPL 2 gamers have actually gone pretty decently for me. I've had both of the underdogs. I had RA and I'm trying to think of the other one last night, WE. So I feel like we're kind of getting there. I feel like we're kind of putting things together. So hopefully we can continue to build on that. Again, the record in my description is only from video pics unless I tweet something definitive out, and I didn't end up doing that because I'm not too confident in my stuff right now, so I don't want to give these things out. So hopefully we'll continue to learn and grow and improve on this stuff, but it is what it is. So we will continue. To quickly kind of recap where everything has shaken out, just because it has been a while. BLG beat FPX, Weibo beat Top Esports, pretty exciting series there. OMG stomped LGD. RA got the upset over NIP, but I thought that was like a pretty close series on paper. WE got the technically upset over TT, but again, I thought that was a pretty close series, so I was surprised by the odds on that one. AL Ultra Prime, this was a pretty interesting one, but obviously Ultra Prime ended up getting the comeback reverse sweep on AL, who won the first game. AL is just so bad. I think AL and Ultra Prime, this was a battle for worst in the league, and AL came out on top, losing that series 1-2. The LCK has not stopped, so there's a lot more stuff in there. I don't want to spend too much time kind of recapping everything, but for the most part, Dom1 has looked pretty solid. T1 has obviously looked great as well. Both of those teams looking pretty good. Obviously, they recently played, and it went to 3. T1 ended up coming out on top, but I feel like the league feels pretty clear with, I think, T1 and Dom1 above everyone else. Then there's like a middle solid second tier, then there's like a third tier, and then like a fourth tier at the bottom. We're still kind of figuring out where everyone kind of is. Obviously, it feels like kind of Guangdong Freaks are at the bottom by themselves, and everyone else is kind of jumbled up in the middle. That's kind of how this league is feeling to me right now, but of course we're going to continue to get information and adjust as we go, as we do. So for that, I'm pretty excited. Obviously, 4-gamer here. We still don't have a lot of LPL stats to bring in, so that's why we're not doing the combined kills per minute and the game time averages and stuff, because we still have like IG on 4 games, LNG and EDG, they've both played 2 games. Like, we need a little bit more sample size before we start bringing in some stats into this. So, but that will be returning once we do have a decent enough sample. So that's the plan there. Obviously, a pretty solid slate. We don't have any too big of favorites. We have the biggest favorite being EDG at minus 240, but I think that series is actually pretty close. So, pretty wide open slate. I'm pretty excited to break this one down. Yeah, let's go ahead and just get started here. Of course, we're going to start over in the LPL just because we do have the confirmed lineups. The first series up is IG versus EDG. IG are currently LPL. They are currently top of the league, actually, at 2-0, 4-0 series so far. Why is this that way? They have not played anyone too. I guess they did play RNG, but in this AL series has looked really one-sided in the IG fashion. But how good is that? Not very. But they did kind of beat RNG up a good bit here. Honestly, we're probably gonna start this one out with the underdog pick of IG. I just feel like so far the odds, the Vegas odds I think have not adjusted to these bad named teams in a sense. I think WE is a good example of this. I think IG is again another good example of this. I think these teams, they were bad all of last year, so the books don't want to quickly adjust them enough to where I think their actual level is. Again, I do think EDG will, should be the favorite here. I think they are still more likely to win the series, of course, but minus 240 feels a bit one-sided in my opinion. I think this is actually a much closer series than the odds are indicating, and it feels very similar to I think the last two nights how WE won, um, and who was the other one? RA over NIP. I feel like the name value on some of these teams is going to heavily dictate these odds early on. And I've been pretty excited for this IG team so far. They've looked very solid in some aspects. Obviously, You Should Know Me in the top lane has been like almost like superstar, I want to describe him as. Obviously, it's been 2 games. We can't get ahead of ourselves, but they've been a pretty exciting team. And I think they've had the play to back it up. And obviously, I think over on the EDG side, yeah, they did look pretty solid. But it was only against WE. Like WE has looked pretty decent, but it's just 1 game, so I don't want to put like too much stock into that. I just think on paper this is a closer game than it is, and I think that's really all it comes down to. I just kind of don't agree with this price. I think this is like EDG minus 150 or so, and there's like a 90 point difference there between minus 240, which is what it actually is, versus what I think like minus 150. So just for that reason, that's all it comes down to for me. So I will be going to the IG side here. I am going to start this one off with the biggest underdog on the slate, but again, that's not really saying much. In the second LPL series of the day, we have LNG versus RNG. This is a pretty interesting matchup. I think both of these teams are pretty unknown. The odds have it at RNG minus 145. If we look at where these teams are, RNG has played twice. They got bullied by IG, and they got the 2-0 over OMG. But honestly, they didn't look too great in the OMG series. That looked like it was a pretty uncoordinated OMG team that didn't have their official support player in. I do believe Jerry played in that series when it should be PP God, which is what OMG had in their most recent series. So now that OMG has their full roster together, it feels a little bit silly for RNG to take that one. So in my opinion, through these first 2 series, RNG have not looked good. They weren't a team I was too heavy on in the first place, but they have not been inspiring at all. On the flip side, the only information we really have about LNG so far is that they beat up on TT, and TT is not good so far. They've looked very, very bad. So this series is pretty tough to predict. We've seen some pretty bad things, I think, across the board. The main thing that sticks in my mind, though, is just how incredibly bad this LNG bottom lane is. Like, I don't know. I don't want to be too exaggeratory, but I think LP, like, legitimately in these first 2 series looked like he was trying to lose. He was playing Sivir Yumi, I believe, and he legitimately looked like he was only just trying to go in and die and lose the fights for his team. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm already on the match fixing stuff, but that's how bad it looked like he was playing at the start, like in these first 2 series. And now he's going up against Gala. That's kind of the big problem here for me. I do worry about like Tarzan and Scout. Obviously, Zika versus Breathe, that's pretty close. Probably would lean towards Breathe. Here. Wei, I think, is better than Tarzan, but Scout, obviously a pretty scary player against Tang Yuan. The big problem, obviously, here with RNG is they don't have Ming back. That would be a pretty big boost, I think, to them. But for me, I'm just going to take it with the RNG side here. I just cannot get out of my head how bad this LP looked and how bad LNG's bottom lane looks against Gala. I still rate Gala very highly. Obviously, he doesn't have the pieces around him in like Xiaohu and Ming anymore. those very much help, obviously. But I don't think it should be that bad of a boost. I still think Wei and Breathe are very solid. I think Wei's been a good bit unleashed. They're depending on him a little bit more, and I think he's stepping up. Same for Breathe. I still like those three pieces. I like Breathe, Wei, and Gala a good bit. I think they're pretty interesting players. And I think that they can do enough with Bunny and Tangyuan, get Tangyuan out of mid lane, get him moving towards bottom and top. They should have like adopt, I think, a former like WE style where they had with like Shanks, where they would just have him on Galley, OTF, that type of stuff. Just get him out of the lanes, go impact your other more important lanes, and do stuff there. I think if they have that game plan, I think this is going to be a pretty interesting team. I don't expect that per se. I think they're going to continue to kind of play relatively normal nonetheless, but I still favor this matchup. I think the odds on this are about fair. I still have a lot of unknowns in my head about both of these teams, but I don't know. I just feel like from what we saw in those first couple games, again, it was before the break. I don't like to put a lot of stock into things pre-break. Usually, I like to kind of start over a little bit fresh. Like this is kind of the season start. Obviously, we have a few teams coming in with their full rosters now. Like AL, for example, having pins in over harder. We just have it just feels like the season starts now, and that kind of feels like a preseason in a way, from the pre-break. So that's kind of how I view it. So I don't put too much stock into it, but it's not nothing. I just kind of slightly lean RNG here. That's just kind of the way I see the series going, and I feel like their upside is a little bit higher. Obviously, in the past, we have seen RNG in their losses give up a good bit, so I do think there is some merit to going to the LNG side, but for me, I'm just not feeling it. I just feel like when we get to these late game team fights, when the things matter, I just trust Gala a lot more than I trust LP. Jeez, my apologies. A little bit of a sneeze there. So that's over in the LPL. As we head over to the LCK, again, some pretty decent matchups here. We have Nongshim versus LSB. Battle of like kind of across the board here. Nongshim has had a rough go of it, I think, in terms of schedule. Obviously, they are 1-3. Their one series win coming over DRX. They did lose to Dom1. They lost to a bro team that's looking like okay. They lost over to KT as well. Just kind of if you were to check season like standings, this would be a little bit interesting. Obviously, LSB got the 2-1 over KT, who Nongshim lost to. They got the 2-1 over Bro, who Nongshim lost to as well. They both lost to Dom1. That has been LSB's sole losses to Dom1. They obviously got the win over Hanwha as well. Honestly, at first glance, it definitely feels like the odds on this one are a little bit interesting, because when you do look at these things, it feels odd. It's like LSB beat Bro and KT. Nongshim lost to Bro and KT. They both lost to Dom1, so that's kind of a wash. And then that third game is LSB beat Hanwha and Nongshim beat DRX, both in 3. So I feel like when you look at these, when you kind of add those things together, you definitely come up with the MMA math equation that Nongshim is the lesser team. I don't know. My thing is like, both these teams are just so uninspiring to me. Like they both just feel so kind of mid. I don't know how else to put it. Like they don't have too many exciting pieces. Obviously, LSB lost Prince, and he was a super exciting player. They still have like KO, Closer, like Bertle and Willer are kind of like Nongshim, Red Force, they still have like some pieces, but again, they still have like a lot of academy players coming up. Like they just feel kind of also. I'm going to just go with the LSB side here. Like they've just been playing better. Nongshim just have not been playing good. I'm honestly a little surprised by the odds and how close they are. I do think LSB, but they still feel like about fair just because neither of these teams are like awe-inspiring. So I'm gonna go with LSB, but this is a game I do not want that much a part of. Obviously, we do have some LCK numbers here. Both these teams play pretty slow. We're looking at LSB like a zero point 0.6. The series is averaging like a zero point 0.6 combined kills per minute. We're just not looking at a ton of action, and I think this is going to be like a traditional LCK game. I just don't want that much a part of this. I really just don't like the players. I don't like the game. I don't like the total. I don't like anything really about this one. So this is going to be one I'm having a little bit less exposure to. The other one up is Genji versus Damwon. This is actually a pretty exciting one. Obviously, both teams 3-1. To recap where Genji's been, they lost to T1, but then they beat up Bro, DRX, and Hanwha. Obviously, DK, they've 2-0'd everyone except for T1, who they lost 2 and 3. Again, this is one where I'm kind of a little bit surprised by how the odds are. I honestly feel like Damwon should be a little bit of a bigger favorite here. I really do. I just feel like Genji is still getting a little bit too much name credit. I don't think Pays and Delight have been inspiring enough here. I think DRX is like a good bit, or sorry, not DRX. I think Damwon has been like a good bit better of a team. I don't like Deft and Kellen that much. I think they get a little bit overhyped in terms of like name value. But nonetheless, I just feel like when we compare the players of like the solid pieces that Genji still do have, obviously Dora and Peanut and Chovy, when we look over on the other side, it's Canna, Showmaker, and Canyon. Like, it doesn't get much easier on the other side as well, but then the bottom lane gap is between Deft Kellen and Pays and Delight just feels so much. It's like Damwon have been clean sweeping the league except for the other top team. I just don't have Genji in this category. I really don't. I think Damwon get the job done here. I think 2-0, honestly. I do like Damwon -1.5 at +155. I feel like that's a like an okay number. Obviously, shop it around and stuff. I don't have any specific book really, but if you could get Damwon to 2-0 at a better price, definitely look around at that. I do like that a good bit. They will be a team I mix into my lineups. Obviously, when we look over at the stats so far, in the LCK, Genji's been playing like a good bit of a pace. We know Damwon can play at a good pace. Obviously, they have not been so far. Whoops, I didn't mean to close that, but I was kind of wrapping up my point anyway. I do like this series a little bit, and I do like the Damwon side a good bit. I kind of just talked about why I just don't have these teams in the same category, and I'm honestly a little bit surprised by how close these odds are. I feel a little bit stronger about this series just because we do have the trust of the fact that these players are obviously much better. I think that tends to have a little bit more consistency. And for that reason, I do like Damwon a good bit. I do like Damwon. I don't know. I don't want to suggest doing like a Damwon sandbox parlay just because I don't trust LSB as much. But again, I am a little bit surprised by how close the odds are in both of these series. I like that Damwon like 2-0 -1.5. However you frame it, I feel like that's a pretty solid indicator and a good direction. I just have these teams in different categories. That's really all it comes down to. Yeah, I think that's kind of going to be it. Quick kind of recap. Nongshim LSB, that one could be okay, but that's definitely the one I want to leave off the most. But I do lean to the LSB side if you are wanting to mix that in. I do like IG over EDG. I think that's going to be a closer series than the odds indicate. I do like Damwon a good bit. I like Damwon to get that 2-0. Those are both, I think pairing IG and Damwon up make up a good bit of sense. And then LNG, RNG, I do like RNG side. I think, again, pairing up RNG maybe with Damwon as like a little bit of a safer lineup, but I do like RNG and IG. I think that's a pretty solid LPL stack, which is probably going to be relatively popular, but nonetheless, I like that either way. So I think RNG, Damwon, and IG is the direction I'm headed. I definitely do like getting a little bit heavier on Damwon just because people do I feel like the LCK, as much as I like to be, I'm part of the problem here. I like to look at the numbers and say the LCK is definitely less active. I still feel like they're still a little bit under-owned. I feel like some of the LPL is a little bit over-owned. I think that proportion is blown out of proportion a little bit, but nonetheless, I'm still fine going with Dom1 a good bit here. They're probably my favorite play overall in the whole slate. Although I do like IG a good bit as well. I feel like that price is a little bit silly as well. So that will be it for me tonight. I'm trying to keep these videos time a little bit shorter, a little bit less rambling, repeating myself, that type of stuff. So hopefully I kind of cover everything for you guys. So getting back into the swing of things, we'll continue to get better and get more used to this stuff again. So yeah, that'll be it for me tonight. Thank you guys all for tuning in, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow.